sentient broadcast. Target, planet Earth. Begin invasion in 3, 2, 1.
Greetings, invaders. My name is Scott. This is Book Invasion. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be doing the Get to Know the Sci-Fi Reader tag. This tag was created by Books with Emily Fox, and I was tagged by Ramsey over at Rajathon. Thanks, Ramsey, for the tag, as always. So let's get into the questions. Question number 1. What is your sci-fi origin story? How did you come to read your first sci-fi novel? I wasn't a big reader in school as a kid, I suppose. What I first really recall getting into sci-fi was watching the Ewoks spin-off movies. Those Ewoks Star Wars movies like Battle for Endor and The Caravan, something about the Caravan. I loved those little Ewoks movies for some reason when I was little. I remember watching them so many times. I didn't watch the original Star Wars movies as much as I did these Ewoks movies. I don't know why. I think I was too young to know the significance of Star Wars, the Star Wars universe in general, and all that stuff. I just wanted to see little Wickets and that little teak guy zipping around. I watched those movies so many times. And then after that, I got into things like Flight of the Navigator, those other kind of kids sci-fi stories, which I thought were just so awesome. And then I really hit the X-Men craze, the X-Men cartoon. I had X-Men posters on the wall, the comic books and shirts and all that. I was like a big X-Men pre-teen geek. But I do remember going to the library and picking up Ender's Game. Like, I remember the actual shelf that it was on. Like, I don't know why it's vivid. Like, I remember picking it off the shelf and seeing it and seeing the cover. And I was like, oh, Ender's Game. What is this? And I remember picking it up, and I think I read the physical copy. I don't know if it was over summer break or something at school, but Ender's Game was kind of my intro, my origin story into that. After watching and getting into these, sci-fi movies and TV shows and things like that, and then I started reading. But then I didn't really continue reading throughout adolescence and so on. I think I just played more video games and things, and I didn't really start the reading train again until maybe like 4 or 5 years ago during my commute and listening to audiobooks. So there was a huge gap there where I wasn't a big reader. I didn't pick up books to read as a recreation. So that was kind of my origin story. And then I think after I came through the adult phase of reading, I hit the Old Man's War series on audio, and I got through all that. And then I went through, Red Rising, The Martian, Ready Player One. And that kind of hit this second stage of my adult phase of reading. That really got me into where I'm at now and into this YouTube channel. So that's kind of my origin story, I suppose. Question number 2, if you could be the hero in a sci-fi novel, who would be the author, and what one trope would you insist be in the story? I think the author of my sci-fi hero novel, I would really like Josiah Bancroft, author of the Sens and the Tower of Babel series, to write my sci-fi novel. He's not... Tower of Babel and Senlin of Sens isn't technically sci-fi, it's fantasy, steampunk, whatever you want to call it. But just the way that his prose works, it is just magical. I would like for him to write my story and put me in a character like Senlin, but just throw it in outer space or something, as opposed to this Tower of Babel. So Josiah Bancroft would be my first pick, of course. The next one I would say, if I want to get really weird and really strange, I would pick Jeff Vandermeer, just to kind of throw some acid on top of that stuff and just make it all kooky and crazy. I think it would make for an interesting read, Annihilation and Born and those other stories. I've yet to read Dead Astronauts, but that's coming up soon. Or the next one I chose was Sarah Pinsker. And Sarah Pinsker wrote A Song for a New Day, which I reviewed before, kind of about a future where concerts are no longer a thing, but there's like an underground scene of live music happening, and then they're kind of running from the police enforcement and things like that. But then there's this global corporation who's making concerts virtual with your little face masks and sensory thing. But the way she wrote about kind of the experience of the music in general and how that touches people and that live concert experience was really awesome to me. And so I think that I need to read more of her things. But I think Sarah Pinsker would do a great job for me in my sci-fi novel, throw a little musical twist in it, instruments, music, stuff like that. Those would be my top 3, I suppose. Question number 3: what is a sci-fi novel you've read this year that you want more people to read? I would choose. The first one that came to mind was Quality Land by Mark Uwe Kling. Quality Land is kind of a parody, idiocracy parody of the future, when everything is strictly based on an algorithm, even your social standing. And the way that this all came about, there's like an android AI person that's running for president, and there's a battle between him and like the rough and gruff, straight talking candidates. But then there's Peter, who's the main character, Peter Jobless, who just gets into these situations, which was just fantastic. I love that book. Quality Land. Please read it. It's good for a great laugh. The audiobook was fantastic. I hear there's a book too that's already out that I really want to get to, but you should read Quality Land. If you want something that's that I enjoyed a whole lot, I would say read A Song for a New Day by Sarah Pinsker, like I mentioned before. And if you want a good space opera, a new filler for the gap of if you've gotten through the Expanse series, or if you're looking for something that's like the Expanse by James S.A. Corey, I would recommend you read Velocity Weapon by Megan E. O'Keefe. Velocity Weapon, book 2 is called Chaos Vector. Those I think are fantastic. I would suggest you check those out. Number 4, what is your favorite sci-fi subgenre? What subgenre have you not read much from? I would say my favorite is probably dystopian and post-apocalyptic a little bit. I like it because it kind of sets the slate. You have a clean slate to go in for your societal structures, your political structures. There's no powers. There can be a shifting balance of powers throughout those landscapes where there's not already a predetermined hierarchical structure of something. So like dystopian and post-apocalyptic, like everything's clean slate. Like the apocalypse has come, everything's barren. There's nothing, and you have that clean slate to build from scratch. I think I like that a lot. That's kind of what appeals to me in these post-apocalyptic dystopian things. Subgenre I have not read much from. I don't know. There's so many subgenres of sci-fi. I would say like cyberpunk, I guess. I read Stormblood this year. Stormblood was supposed to be kind of a cyberpunky, Altered Carbon type of book. I haven't read Altered Carbon, but it was supposed to be a cyberpunk thing. I really liked it. It was kind of gritty and dark, and there's drug use in the future and things like that. So that may be one I don't read a lot of. I'm sure there's a lot of others. I don't know, sci-fi, whatever. Number 5, who is one of your autobuy sci-fi authors? I would say probably Hugh Howey is an autobuy. He put out like a collection of stories, the Dystopian Triptych, I think, recently, which I need to get. But he also wrote the Silo Saga, Wool, Shift, and Dust. I've read Sand, Halfway Home, Beacon 23. There are other ones like there's some other short story collections that I think he's part of that I want to read. Another one is Peter Klein's. I love all of his stuff. He wrote 14, The Fold, Paradox Bound, and Terminus, which I need to read. Dead Moon, we won't talk about that. Pung Shepard, who wrote the Book of M. I'm really excited for her next novel. The Book of M was fantastic. She's going to be an auto-buy for the next one she comes up with. And Kira Jane Buxton, who wrote Hollow Kingdom. Please go read Hollow Kingdom. Kira Jane Buxton will be an auto-buy author for me going forward. So just Hollow Kingdom was fantastic. It was for her debut novel. I loved it so much. So whatever she comes out with next, I will buy automatically. And then we have Pierce Brown, who wrote Red Rising, Ernest Cline. I have Ready Player 2 on pre-order. And Andy Weir, which has another one called Hail Mary coming out. Project Hail Mary coming out next year, which I will be checking out. Number 6, how do you typically find sci-fi recommendations? I follow a lot of book bloggers on Twitter, and so I have a whole list of them, and I have a whole list of book YouTubers that I follow on Twitter. So those are kind of my recommendations that I see people buzzing about. I see blog posts like top 5 or top 10 lists I go to. Those are usually where I find some good recs of some stuff that's coming up that's new, stuff that I may not have heard of. Also a bunch of horror bloggers. The Horror Family on Twitter is amazing, and I get a lot of recommendations from them as well. Number 7. What is an upcoming sci-fi release that you're excited for? I really want to read The History of What Comes Next by Sylvain Neuvel, who wrote the Themis Files, which was Sleeping Giants, Waking Gods, and something else. Only Human. So his new one is coming out next year. It's on NetGalley now, but I can't. Ebooks are hard, so I'm going to wait for that to come out on audio. Like I said before, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and The Star Eater by Kirsten Hall. Now, Kirsten Hall wrote The Border Keeper, which was like a short novella that I reviewed previously. I had that on audio. Now, that book was amazing. The Border Keeper by Kirsten Hall. Check out my review. Go check out the book. She's coming out with a new one called The Star Eater, which is like a priestess that practices cannibalistic magic, and she has to turn on like her order of priests to do something, and it just sounds amazing. The way she writes was awesome. So I'm really excited for The Star Eater, and the cover is fantastic. Number 8, what is one misconception about sci-fi you would like to lay to rest? It's not all about science and calculations and trigonometry and rocket velocities, stuff like that. Like, it's not all like The Martian, for those of you who haven't read a lot of sci-fi. They're not putting in chemical balances to do light speed velocity travel. Sci-fi, I would say what appeals to me about it is more about the societal flow of things, how things changes with your social standing in these worlds, a little bit of political intrigue. I like a little bit of politics, but I don't like following political characters in books. But it uncovers new scenarios that your minds may not be comprehending now, but those scenarios may come to play in the future. So it's a good resource to kind of dive into sci-fi a little bit, to get that exploratory experience in these new worlds, to say, all right, so if an EMP really hit and wiped out all electricity, what would we do? Go read 1 Second After by William Forshen or something. It talks about what happens. You can't drive a car, you can't do this, you can't use your phone, you can't use your computer. Disease, famine, everything happens, people die. It's bad news. It's something you could maybe prepare for. Who knows? Solar flares and yada yada, all that kind of crazy stuff. So I think sci-fi, I would say it's not about geeking out about Star Trek stuff and phasers and whatever. It's more about the scenarios that may come to play in the future and exploring those in your mind. Get with it. Go read some sci-fi. Number 9, if someone had never read a sci-fi and asked you to recommend the first 3 books to come to mind, what recommendations would they be? So if you want a space opera, I would say go check out Velocity Weapon by Megan E. O'Keefe. If you want some action stuff, go read Red Rising, the Red Rising saga. If you want something with a little bit more heart and feeling that pulls on your heartstrings, go read, but also gives you a good laugh, go read The Humans by Matt Haig. And if you want some dystopia, post-apocalyptic stuff, go read the Silo Saga, which is Wool, Shift, and Dust by Hugh Howey. There you go. Just go read them. Number 10, who is the most recent sci-fi reading content creator you came across that you'd like to shout out? One person I came across months ago that I subscribed to, his name is Trayvon Grant. His channel is called Novel Escape, but the channel is actually under his name, Trayvon Grant. I'll link to it down below. Go check him out. I caught him because he read and reviewed the Themis Files series, Sleeping Giants, Waking Gods, and Only Human. But his video production is really great. The way he talks about these books is really fantastic. He did a lot of fantasy reviews, like Rage of Dragons, I think, and a couple other fantasy series. But he's a small channel now. He's just growing. He's getting his start. He's getting his footing. But please go check out Trayvon Grant. I think his videos are amazing. He does fantasy and sci-fi. So please go check him out. I'll link to him down below. But thanks for watching, everybody. That is the Meet the Sci-Fi Reader book tag for this episode. Thanks, Ramsey, for tagging me. I will tag... let's tag Trayvon Grant. Let's tag Dev K Thrills. He's got a good channel going on too. Let's just stick with those guys. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. This is Scott. This is Book Invasion. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.